It's been a while back now, but a newspaper in Washington carried the story of scratch that. Let's read Scripture first. Scripture this morning is from Matthew chapter 11, verses 25 through 30. At that time, Jesus said, "I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and the learned and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for this was your good pleasure. All things have been committed to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Now let me tell you about my little friend whose name is Tattoo. Tattoo is a basset hound who lived in Washington, and according to the news report that I read, he did not plan to go for an evening run. But when his owner closed the car door, his leash was accidentally closed. And you know the story. You only know part of it. Cindy's looking at me like, how can you tell a horrible story like this? Well, a motorcycle officer noticed a passing vehicle with something dragging behind it. He commented that the poor basset hound was, quote, picking them up and putting them down as fast as he could. Now, I want you to get a mental image of this. Here's this poor little short-legged basset hound who's running absolutely for his life. The motorcycle policeman chased the car down to a stop, and Tattoo was rescued and is alive and well today and lived happily ever after. Am I off the hook now? Okay. Now my question is, you got the mental image of this little basset hound running as hard as he can just to keep up. My question is, have you ever felt like that? We all have. Do you feel like that right now? Probably. 2020 has run us ragged and worn us out. I've always been intrigued about the last 20 years whenever I meet up with one of the high school kids, and ask the high school kids, how are you doing? They always say the same thing. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I'm so worn out. So what's the solution? Now, it seems to me that what should be the solution might be even part of the problem. I like the sign that I saw online from a church. It says, "Don't let worries kill you. Let the church help." Don't know how to take that. Sometimes what should be the solution becomes part of the problem. And if I take a good hard look in the mirror, I know that I can be that way sometimes. Sometimes you may want to come to church and the one thing that you need is rest. And I remind you that Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you more to do. I'll give you an assignment. I'll give you some things that you can't possibly cram into your already overfilled schedule, but I'll give them to you anyway." If I do that from time to time, I apologize and I recognize the error of my way, but sometimes I just can't help it. Back in the 1960s, Time magazine reported on a Senate subcommittee on time management. They predicted advances in technology would radically change how many hours people work in a week. That was back in the 1960s. They said within 20 years, America will be on a 22-hour work week. That's what Time Magazine said. They said that the greatest challenge would be figuring out to do with all the excess time. I kind of missed that revolution. Did you? The 22-hour work week is something that never quite cut on. As a matter of fact, we're more like the Red Queen in Alice in Wonderland, who says, now here you see, it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that. And we're tired. And we're worn out. And then 2020 comes along, and I have to tell you what all's gone with that. And we think that we're winning the rat race, and all of a sudden the rats are replaced with faster rats. And we can't keep up. We can't get ahead. It just seems that we're stressed out and worn out, and we don't know what to do about it. And in the middle of all this, here comes Jesus, who says, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Let's start there. Let's start there. That's a good place to start, because Jesus wants to give you rest. You understand that? Jesus wants to give you rest. But somebody else doesn't. That's the enemy. That's Satan. He thrives on the way that we get stressed out and worn out and we simply can't keep up. I think we need to understand what Jesus says about rest and understand perfectly that Jesus wants you to experience rest. So let me break that down just a little bit and help us to understand what Jesus is trying to do for us. Because it's quite clear to see on the most basic level that I can receive rest if, and really only if, I come to Jesus. We thought the problem was the schedule. Problem's not the schedule. The problem is our relationship with Jesus. The promise is quite clear. You come to me, Jesus says, and you receive rest. But one of the issues that we have is we have misunderstood the problem. We knew that we were burdened. We knew that we were stressed out. But we didn't know what it was. We thought it was physical. And so we sought relaxation. We thought that what was causing our stress was financial. So we tried to make more money. We thought it was something of this world. Take a look at the book of Ecclesiastes. We're not going to this morning, but take a look at the book of Ecclesiastes. And Solomon, the wisest man that's ever lived, never figured out what the problem was and tried all the wrong solutions. He tried comedy clubs, he tried music, he tried everything and couldn't find what God had planned for him. Take a look at some of the people that we put as our leaders in our culture, the people who live in Hollywood. There's some interesting things have said. You heard of Nicolas Cage? He says, I wonder if there is a hole in the soul of my generation. We've inherited the American dream, but where do we take it? What do we do with it? You heard of Harrison Ford? Harrison Ford said, here's the problem. You only want what you ain't got. And the interviewer asked him, well, tell me, Mr. Ford, what is it that you ain't got? You know what he said? He said, peace. Peace. That's what we want. That's what we pursue. That's our goal. That's the American dream. But we haven't found it because we haven't really understood that the problem is spiritual. You can't fill a round hole with a square peg. You got to know what exactly is the issue and the problem. And did you see what Jesus promised exactly? He says, take my yoke upon you in verse 29, Matthew 11. Learn from me. I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. It's a soul issue. It's spiritual. And when we can recognize that and embrace that, then we can start this journey toward the rest that we want. I mean, the whole problem was resolved centuries earlier. In the Old Testament, you got this seventh day thing. It's called the Sabbath. And the purpose of the Sabbath, one day out of 7, is to rest and to worship. But what have we done as the 20th century church? Well, our problem is that we've run in the opposite direction. Sunday is fun day. You know how I know that's true? Because I saw it on a shirt in Walmart this week. That's what it said. Sunday is fun day. And we know that that's it. The kids don't have time for worship because they've got so many things on Sundays. They've got their sports tournaments and they've got all these other things in which they're involved. And this day that God has designed for rest only adds to our stress and our frustration. You see, we got to understand what the problem is. And the problem is taking care of ourselves spiritually in the way that God has told us. We've got to understand what the solution is. We've got to understand what the invitation is. And the invitation is come to Jesus. Now, don't misunderstand what the Bible is telling us here. It doesn't say come to the church. Now, the church is the best place to find Jesus. We all understand that, and I hope we agree with that. But the problem is sometimes you can go to the church and you don't find Jesus. All churches were not created equal. All churches are not alike. Churches have personalities, just as people do. And you might go to church and not find Jesus in worship. Just going to church doesn't mean that you've worshiped. Just like going to McDonald's doesn't mean that you're a hamburger. Just because you go in a garage, that doesn't make you a car. And sometimes we understand and we try to substitute a relationship with Jesus by just going to church. We can go to church for a lot of different reasons. I remember when Mr. Barack Obama was elected president of the United States, and one of the things on his agenda, which is appropriate, was to find a church. But according to the report that I've got up on the screen, it says that he was motivated by a lot of different motivations, just social and political and all these other things. I know people who go to church to make business contacts. You want to know a secret? As a longtime preacher, you know who we're always scared to see coming to church? Amway salesmen. People don't always come for the religious issues. That's why Jesus says you got to come to me and don't substitute something else. I don't have to find Jesus. I'm the leader of a moral family. My kids are involved in the right things. And isn't that all that really matters? Or I can learn about Jesus, but I really don't have to commit my life to him. Boy, there's a large step that is necessary before we can begin to embrace this rest that we're promised. You got to understand what the invitation is, and this invitation involves a specific decision. And after that decision, a specific commitment. Actually, it's, a whole series of decisions, and it affects every decision that you make for the rest of your life. But understand that, or more accurately, understand to whom Jesus is calling us. It's not to a lifestyle. It's to a relationship with Him. And coming to Jesus means accepting the invitation. Accept the invitation. We're not good at accepting invitations. If I invited you to my house for lunch, I know the first thing you would ask, what can I bring? What can I bring? We're going to enter this time of year that we all absolutely love, the Christmas season, and there's this one practice that I just can't accept. It's called the gift exchange. That means I will get you something of approximately $10 in value if you in turn will give me something of approximately $10 in value. And if either one of us fudges and goes a little higher or a little lower, it's going to be quite embarrassing. So you got to keep it level. That's not what an invitation is all about. Accept the invitation to simply bring yourself. Accept the invitation to rest. It's not a matter of getting your life straightened out so that you can accept the invitation. It's not accepting the invitation so that you'll have more to do, but so you can receive rest. It's intriguing to me that if you follow Jesus through the Gospels, you find that people always got exactly what they needed. 6th chapter of John's Gospel, verse 35, Jesus declared, I'm the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry. He was talking about people who were hungry and needed bread, and He fed them. About 5,000 of them were told in Scripture. If you look at John chapter 7, verses 37 and 38, if anyone is thirsty, Jesus says, let him come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the Scripture has said, streams of living water will flow from within him. Just exactly what we need. Conversely, Jesus said, if you don't come to me, you're not going to get what you need. John chapter 5, verse 40, you refuse to come to me to have life. I will experience rest when I come to Jesus. And unless and until I come to Jesus, I'm going to have to deal with the faster rats. I'm going to have to work twice as hard to accomplish half as much. Jesus says, come to me. And it'll all work out. I'll give you the rest you need. He also says something that is kind of confusing at first glance. He says, take the yoke upon you. And you need to understand that I will experience rest when I take the yoke. Verse 29 of the passage that we read this morning, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. To be yoked together with Jesus, to take the yoke upon you, means that you are connected with Him. Maybe it's kind of old school. I probably don't have to explain this. Here in Missouri, we understand what a yoke is. A yoke is something that you put on animals so that they can work together, so that they don't have to pull the weight by themselves, so that they can have the benefit of someone else helping them. We're simply called, first of all, to be with Jesus. It's awful hard to be where you are, isn't it? You can find that out in a lot of different ways. If I'm talking to somebody in my house, the phone rings, guess what happens? I got to answer the phone. And if I'm talking to somebody on the phone and the doorbell rings, I got to answer the doorbell. The other thing is always more important. It's awfully hard to be where we are. Can I add two words that really complicates this matter? Cell phone. Is that two words or is that one word? There's one big problem. Greatest thing about the cell phone is that we're always available. The worst thing about the cell phone is that we're always available. And we got to sleep with it. Mine's waterproof because I need it when I'm in the shower. You know, we just can't be unavailable. We've always got something to do and someone to talk to. Maybe the first thing about connecting with Jesus is to make ourselves available, to simply hold still and to accept this yoke so that we can be with him. And as we are with him, we learn from him. Again, Matthew 11:29, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Learn from Jesus. Read a story about a guy who went out to a farm, visited an old farmer, and the farmer was plowing his field with a team of oxen. I didn't say this happened last week. But a man was plowing his field with a team of oxen, and as the guy looked, he saw that one of the oxes was quite a bit bigger than the other one. So he asked the farmer, "How come you got two oxes that aren't the same size?" Here's what the farmer said. "See, it's like this. That older ox is the best ox I ever had. He knows his way around a field. The reason I put the younger one with him is so the older, more knowledgeable ox could teach him how to plow. I'd never put the younger one, if I never put them together, the younger one would never learn. By himself, the younger ox would pull himself to death. But together, he learns to cooperate with and rest in the strength of the older ox. Come to me," Jesus says. "Take the yoke, not so you'll have more to do, but so you'll have a strength on which you can depend. It's going to carry you through the difficult times. Come to the one who is the perfect human being that can carry us through this human experience." Colossians chapter 1 verse 15 says that Jesus is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. You want to know what God is like, what God is all about? Come to Jesus. And you'll learn how to deal with life. And you'll learn how to experience the victory that God has planned for you. Taking the yoke doesn't mean leading, but it means following Jesus. Now, you got to remember that we're talking about the yoke of Jesus. It's his yoke, not yours. That you got to meet with Jesus on his terms, not yours. Far too often, our plan is exactly the opposite. You know, we try to get Jesus to wear our yoke and to do things our way. And when God finally understands the way that I understand, things are going to be better. You know how scary it is to say something like that out loud? I'm afraid I'm going to get struck by lightning or something like that. Doesn't that sound horrible? You know, if God were as smart as me, this would work out. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's the way we act. Why don't we let him determine our direction? We try to go our own way. And at best, it doesn't work out. And at worst, it destroys us. To accept the rest means to accept the guidance. You take the yoke upon you, not to lead, but to follow. Again, verse 29, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. Not take my yoke upon you so that I can learn from you, but to learn from me. I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you'll find rest for your souls. Now, don't misunderstand. Rest does not mean nothing to do. Have you ever had nothing to do? Let me tell you, on the days that, I'm not as busy as I used to be, and there are some days I don't have anything to do. They're not much fun. It's always more fun to have something to do. I'm thankful for the jobs that I have, for the things with which I can occupy myself. You take the yoke so that you can work with Jesus. And really, the only options in life are to either work with Jesus or to fight against him. You accept the yoke so that you can pull in the right direction. It's a matter of devoting your life to the praise and glory of God. It's a matter of devoting your life to others. And in that, you don't find more to do. You simply find rest and satisfaction and peace. We are worn out, but as always, God provides perfectly. Problem that we have is we're running as fast as we can. Like that little old basset hound, we're running as fast as our little legs will carry us, and we just can't keep up. And in the middle of this, Jesus says, come to me, and I'll give you rest. And you only find the rest as you come to Jesus. You only find the peace when you take the yoke upon you and accept the calling, the invitation that's been given to you. Not to do things your own way, but to find rest and peace in Jesus. It's a privilege to wear the yoke. It's a rest to be partnered together with Jesus. And perhaps there's a decision that you need to make this morning to make this more of a reality. To commit yourselves more fully to following Jesus and to going his direction rather than your own. Just a moment, we're going to sing the old song, I Have Decided to Follow Jesus. May that be our commitment. And as a result of that, may we begin to experience the rest that Jesus has planned for us and he wants to give us.